Good morning, everyone. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. We'll just wait for everybody to join in here, and yeah. All right, we'll get started here. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, How Suncor Utilizes Flight Insight to Manage one of Canada's largest drone programs. So, today we'll explore how Suncor optimizes efficiency, safety, and environmental responsibility through Flight Insight's UTM SaaS platform, all while leveraging Measur's unmanned technology, setting a benchmark for drone operations in the energy sector. So my name is Connor Barova, and I am the unmanned technology representative for Measur here in Calgary, and I'll be the moderator for the duration of the webinar. So just a couple of rules here. Obviously, please make sure all your microphones are on mute. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. All the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. We'll call everybody up on stage and get you to clear up anything that needs clearing up. Also, a copy of the webinar will be posted online and shared with all viewers afterwards. So just a quick outline on the webinar. So here are some of the topics that will be covered. So first and foremost, we're going to go over Suncor's growing drone program. So from 2020 to where they are now. We're also going to go over how Suncor utilizes Flight Insight for airspace management. We're also going to do a hardware overview on the Ecotech system from Flight Insight. We're also going to cover how Flight Insight software improves airspace management for enterprise organizations. And then finally, we're going to cover Measur's keys to unmanned programs, and then just an overall general look at some recommended products and workflows that are industry standard today. So our presenters today, just a short introduction on all three of them. So first off, we have Tedman Jess. He is the Senior Advisor of Aviation at Suncor. So Tedman joined Suncor Energy Aviation Department in 2014 and led the Suncor Energy Drone Program since its inception in 2020. We also have Derek Krivak, which is the CEO of Flight Insight. So Derek brings 25 years of energy industry experience. He is currently the CEO of Flight Insight, as mentioned. For those of you that do not know, Flight Insight is a Calgary-based tech firm who leads in safety and risk management services for aviation, specializing in RPAS airspace management, for many major North American energy and utility firms. And finally, we have Lucas Wilgosh, VP of Unmanned Technologies here at Measur. So Lucas has been with Measur since the inception of their unmanned and geospatial divisions. As I mentioned, he's currently the VP of Unmanned Technologies and has helped Measur become one of North America's fastest growing unmanned suppliers and Canada's largest DJI enterprise dealer. So with that, I will now call upon Tedman Jess to come to the stage and speak more on Suncor's current drone operations.
Good day, and thank you for having me. My name is Tedman Jess, and I am the Senior Aviation Advisor for Drones and RPAS here at Suncor. Thank you to Lucas and Connor at Measur, as well as Derek and Jesse at Flight Insight for having me today. So why did we implement Flight Insight and the SAMs? The SAMs is the program that we refer to for our whole drone program here at Suncor. It is the Suncor Aviation Management System. So prior to June of 2019, drones were being used across Suncor sites in the RMWB, or the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, in a piecemeal manner, all with special flight operating certificates, or SFOCs. In June of 2019, as most of you are aware, Section 9 of the Canadian Aviation Regulations specified the legal use of drones for personal and commercial use in Canadian airspace. With the new regulations, RPAS and drone operations officially fell under the Suncor Aviation's Department's purview. We experienced an exponential increase in the use of drones on site from that time. And then in July of 2019, an Alberta Forestry helicopter flew over the Fort Hills site, and a drone vendor reported a near miss. After a thorough investigation from our team, it was determined from the data on board the helicopter that there was enough separation in the airspace and a collision could not have occurred. However, the helicopter pilot was unaware that there was any drone activity in the area. Our investigation revealed that there was no central database to identify where and when the drone vendors were operating in the airspace above each Suncor site in the RMWB. So in August of 2019, then the Suncor team was tasked with owning the risk across all Suncor operations and creating a treatment plan. We needed a system to track, monitor, and schedule drone activity and harmonize it with the rest of our aviation operations. In January of 2020, after an extensive search of available off-the-shelf options, we selected Flight Insight of Calgary. The aviation team worked closely over the course of 2020 with Flight Insight, and they were able to develop features into their program to fit Suncor's needs. In December 14th of 2020, the Suncor Airspace Management System, or the SAMS, was launched. And in October of 2021, integration of Syncrude and their preferred drone operators made it into the SAMS. So what is SAMS and Flight Insight? Flight Insight is a web-based platform that can be accessed on computer, tablet, or phone using Google Chrome. It tracks and schedules RPAS and drone flights. It provides advanced warnings of RPAS flight conflicts. It is also a single place for Suncor to track the regulatory requirements of our drone vendors, all pilot certificates, aircraft registration, insurance documents, operation manuals, radio certificates, and special flight operating certificates. The system provides the Suncor Aviation team, site permit offices, drone vendors, and helicopters in the region with a snapshot of the airspace above the RMWB. So the Suncor regions in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo are broken down into different regions. Initially, we started with the 4 Suncor sites of Base Plant, Fort Hills, Firebag, and Mackay River. And in October of 2021, we added the Syncrude sites of Mildred Lake and Aurora North. We were able to successfully implement the system across the sites with very little change to the existing RPAS site processes, even though each site has their own unique requirements. Flight Insight has separate alerts and notifications for each individual region that each Suncor user can toggle so that they can focus on the oversight for their own area of work. So operators are restricted and must seek approval for day of flights. Being a static system at the moment, we want everybody to have a clear picture of the airspace for that day. If any last minute or day of flights are needed and operationally viable, they will be approved through the system. Operators can schedule their flights up to 90 days out, and flights are entered into the system via shapefiles such as a KML or KMZ. SAMS also provides RPAS conflict alerts. When entering a flight plan, the system notifies the operator that a conflict exists and will have to be resolved before an approval will be issued. Resolution of conflicts are managed at the site level. We also have restricted airspace in the SAMS. So at the YFI or Firebag Airport, we use a prior permission required or PPR system to control Suncor RPAS flights within a 5 nautical mile radius of the airport. Approvals are granted by the manager of the Firebag Airport or his designate. RPAS flights are booked around our fly-in, fly-out program, and the drone operator must contact the Firebag radio office prior to and after their operation has concluded. Approved helicopter landing areas at Suncor sites are also restricted. We restrict access to these areas so that drone vendors have an enhanced situational awareness that low-flying helicopters on approach are common in the area. It is mandated that all drone operators broadcast their intentions and monitor the North Oil Sands frequency of 123.5. This is especially critical around our approved helicopter landing areas. The SAMS also alerts operator that permission is required to operate in this airspace. We also have the ability to temporarily block off airspace to RPAS flights. Some examples of why we would restrict RPAS flights are mine blasting, BV loss or beyond visual line of sight RPAS trials, low flying helicopter work as seen in the example of the picture above. This was for a geomagnetic survey of the area, or even an incident. If there ever is an incident, we can clear the airspace at short notice. For example, to allow for HERO, which is the Helicopter Emergency Response Organization, which is the emergency helicopter service for the people of northeastern Alberta, to land safely, or we can lock the airspace for forestry and forest fire activity. So some statistics you can see from the past year, but since the launch of 2020, we have used Flight Insight to log and track over 8,200 RPAS flights, maintain the compliance status of more than 40 separate vendors, and we have given view-only access to Suncor's approved helicopter vendors to assist in their flight planning and situational awareness. So the future of drones at Suncor, at the end of Q1 2024, which is fast approaching, Suncor will complete the pilot program for internally operated drones. Employees who operate drones as part of their duties have attended ground school and received their advanced pilot certification. Our goal is not to have specialized drone pilots. Instead, our aim is to supplement employees' roles with drones. With Flight Insight and Measur support, we currently have 10 DJI drones deployed in business units in the Northern Oil Sands region, as well as our refinery in Edmonton. So with the success of our pilot program, we will be standing up a fleet services model across Suncor's North American sites. We expect to add an additional 20 to 30 units to our fleet across North America by the end of Q3 2024. Later this year, we will integrate our approved helicopter vendors into the manned aviation portal, where they will have to enter their flight plans to better manage the airspace. As well as you will see later in this presentation, Suncor will also be integrating Flight Insight's Ecotech tracking technology for all drone and helicopter operations in the RMWB later this year. And looking towards 2025, our department is also conducting BV loss trials this year with an eye on the forthcoming update to the Canadian Aviation Air Regulations, Section 9, low risk beyond visual line of sight operations. That's it for me. Thank you everyone for your time. If you have any questions, please pop them into the chat and we'll answer them at the end. I'll pass it back to Connor to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tedman. I'll now call upon Derek Krivak, who will give us a breakdown of Flight Insight and the Ecotech hardware.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy schedules to look at the work that we've been doing here with Suncor and with Measur on our Flight Insight program. So, give you a brief introduction into Flight Insight. We do have multiple divisions within the corporation. Obviously, we're talking about drone and RPAS airspace management this morning, but we do have a manned aviation auditing program that Sean Darcy runs for Flight Insight. And we also are standing up our Ecotech program, which we're going to discuss here in a moment. So I do want to give one big differentiator for all those on the call here this morning, that there's a big difference between managing and regulating drone airspace. So when we look at the regulations, that's obviously Transport Canada, that's the regulator across our nation, and NAV Canada helps them with the regulation and implementation of that and monitoring. But for our RPAS operations, a big part of it is managing the ground. And when we look at managing the ground, what we're looking at is the pilots, the equipment, and then obviously the operations with RPAS as they move forward. So the question is, for a lot of you on this call, you have companies, you're using drones, and we would ask, how do you manage the risk? So, risk management process, you would do this with multiple parts of your business, and it starts with your policies and your standard operating procedures. So we've had many conversations across North America with multiple companies, and in some cases, the answer that we get is, how are you managing risk? And it's like, well, we haven't had an issue yet. So, we're along with the regulators saying, you need to have some policies and standard operating procedures in place. But obviously there's insurance. As you're flying, training and education is paramount. So your advanced RPAS ticket is required. You need to have a UTM system. So obviously Flight Insight is one option that you have, but there are multiple options out there. And we would say you should have some kind of a system. And ultimately the regulators are going to make you have a system, whether that be sort of end of 2024 or early into 2025. A fleet tracking system assists you in that. Auditing is paramount in manned aviation, but it's starting to become more prevalent with RPAS operations and organizations like Suncor. Auditing and then real-time situational awareness. We have the Ecotech platform, and that we'll get into in a matter of slides. So what is the framework for what's required? Now, obviously, this is a snapshot of the Flight Insight architecture, that we have. But the portal itself, when you drill down into it, we have the Suncor, in this case, the owner, operator, has an overall review of the operations, the pilots, the aircraft, all the documentation required, and the flights that are into the system. Airspace management, so you can restrict your access, mark points of interest, and also have regional separation, which if you have multi country or multi sort of jurisdictional parts, you don't want people in Texas listening to issues happening up in the oil sands. Compliance tracking, so auditing, expiring documents, risk analysis and reports. These are all automated and autonomous within the system, so you're automatically notified with expiring documents and reporting. Internal operations, so this goes for external and internal operations. You do your scheduling, your documentation. Your pilots are marked in the system, as well as the equipment and the maintenance involved with that equipment. And then obviously you can add or remove pilots, people in the system, and also manage the roles. overall. So the portal workflow that you see, so your operators, you're going to manage the list of approved operators within the system. In this case, for Suncor, we have 40 plus operators in the system. We're tracking the compliance data from the operators. And if you can see on the right-hand side, my right, you're looking at the RPAS operators. We run on a stoplight system. So it's very intuitive. We've been told that by multiple users and operators, that it goes green's good, yellow, there's some sort of an issue we need to look at, and red means you're not allowed to fly within the system. So we're managing the airspace restrictions and requirements. We monitor that, as you can see, on a daily basis, and then maintaining and ensuring your control of the airspace, which is paramount. Now, for those companies that are actually doing the work, so the RPAS operators workflow, we have a sign-up system. So you create the account, you add your basic info, you upload all the required documentation that the company is asking you to. The aircraft we want associated with your flights and your pilots. Obviously, your pilots, companies have multiple pilots, so we want to make sure their licenses and other documentation has not expired and it's relevant. And then the flights, you have to schedule your flights into the system. And then that's where we start to see if there's any sort of conflicting airspace, as it may be. So let's look at the system itself. So the system overall maps the missions. We can see airspace and flight conflicts. We're going to review the flight status and risk analysis. And this information is displayed on the map. It can be modified to show satellite imagery, points of interest, zones, and airspace, as the case may be. And you can see in the background where it is. So the overall dashboard, this is what it looks like. So on the left-hand side, we're going to drill through all of the relevant information on that side. So that's your primary menu. Again, as you wake up in the morning, you're checking how the day's flights are going to be. You have immediate warnings in place. These are things that need your immediate attention. On the upper right-hand side, your account management and messaging is up on that part. You can see your upcoming RPAS flights for that day, and then obviously charts and overview of flight operations on your landing page. So you can see your list of RPAS operators and their approval status. Again, the stoplight system is so intuitive that you can immediately see and drill into any of your operators for compliance issues. They may be expiring documentation. And one thing that people ask us is this a day of notification? They actually start warning in advance of. So if you have expiring documents, we're sending both the RPAS operators and the owner operators of the system notification that this is coming up. And then obviously when it's lapsed, you become red and you're not allowed to fly. When we add operators into the system, it's a link. Obviously in this case, Jonathan just got a link. You click on that, the hyperlink sets you up and off you go. The scheduling, again, showing you, in this case, we're looking at a 1 week status over the course of that week. We can see on a daily basis who's scheduled to fly, and we'll have contact information for them as well, making sure there's no conflicts within the portal. And who doesn't like reports? So people ask, can you customize reports coming out of the system? Yes, you can. We can export monthly, yearly, or custom data that you want to see. And we are in the process of linking in the reporting to financial reports being generated as well. So for a lot of our companies that use the system, they want to know who's flying, how much they're spending, what are they spending flights on, and that allows better clarity for budgeting and growth for a lot of our larger organizations. Custom regions, and I can say that when we first started, we didn't have customization of regions, and this was a complaint that came in with multinational companies saying, I don't care what's happening in South Texas. We're up here in Northern Alberta. So the custom regions themselves, as Tedman was saying previous, that you can set them up. This is all customized, and depending on how you want to run your RPAS operations, we can assist in making that happen as well for you. Now, managing internal RPAS. So the system was initially set up to manage vendors within it, but as we see now, more and more companies are starting to internalize their RPAS operations. And so we treated sort of the same way, where we allow the company personnel to operate RPAS within the system, and they can access the same tools, compliance and tracking, and scheduling as our external vendors. So you can use this internally and externally, and that's seamless. And moving on, the customization and points of interest. This can be static in some cases, like with the Firebag Airport, or it can be dynamic. So sometimes you need to set up a helidrome in certain areas, so you can pop that up. Forest fires are another example that unfortunately do happen, greater frequency that we see, and this just becomes part of the dynamic flexibility of the system, where we can put these points of interest in place, and then when need be, we take them down. User management and specific permissions. So we can customize notifications in different regions, depending on what you monitor, but the user management component, and we always say, you know, if you're flying 1 or 2 drones, you can probably manage your users and your operations using conventional type systems. As it becomes greater and greater, your users need to be managed on a carrier specific basis. You can see on this case, we have different approval basis for different organizations. So we've essentially gone through a life cycle of an RPAS flight. So you've entered your information, you've done your checks, you've done your flight check, and now we're getting into the component of live tracking. And live tracking has multiple reasons why. Obviously, Transport Canada and the FAA want to grasp the RPAS industry and try and understand who's flying and where they're flying. So the live tracking component, if we go to the next slide, we've stood up what's called EchoTech. And it's a real-time flight tracking platform, which ultimately, at the end of the day, is trying to avoid the instance which Tedman alluded to, and a lot of our clients do, with heli or fixed wing coming into close proximity with the drone. And there's multiple cases of drones hitting planes. There's other cases where drones do what's called a flyaway, and literally just flies away. And without being able to track those devices, A, it's a safety issue, but B, at the end of the day, there's some accountability in different aspects which we look at for real-time flight tracking. So this system that you see here, that weighs about 70 grams. So for RPAS, the concern is that weight and flying with a heavy piece of equipment will impact its aerodynamics and ability to fly. So we engineered all the aviation output data that we want within that small unit, about 70 grams is said. And the video on the side is showing you that we can look at issues where compliance, so proximity with manned aviation, manned aircraft. We can also look at flying out of your detailed flight that you put into the system. So part of this is you can upload your flight path in, but if you're not staying within that zone, then it sort of becomes irrelevant that you've done that. So it's light enough for any drone. It's independent with power, and some of our clients Obviously it works great if you're cellular backhauled, but some of our clients are now in the oil sands, pipeline communities. You don't have cellular. So it may seem simple, but having a satellite communication and satellite infrastructure within that same weight class and same size class has just now come to fruition. So we're actually able to put satellite chips and satellite antennas and communication within that blue transmitters you see, and essentially be able to pop up our past traffic control in areas where there is no cellular coverage. Instances such as forest fires and other emergency areas that have no cellular coverage, these units become critical to tracking and helping to monitor that airspace. And with that, I'd like to, again, thank everybody for coming on the call this morning. I hope we've shed some light on not only Suncor's operations, but tools that are out there. And I'm going to give it over to Lucas to take over the stage. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate it. Before I start, I just want to say thanks to Derek and Tedman for joining us on this call. That was awesome. We really appreciate it. Tedman really went over, what Suncor was doing on their drone operations. Derek went over the whole, flight management and risk management side of things. And from my side of Measur, we're really going to go over the equipment side and how we worked with Suncor, to help them decide what equipment to procure and really who Measur is and what we carry. I'll try to make it as least of a sales presentation as possible and make it as interesting as we can. So I'll see what we can do. So, who is Measur? A lot of our customers are on this call, I can see. So thank you guys for joining. But for those of you who don't know, we call ourselves commercial unmanned experts. So what we are is we are drone distributors for air, land, and sea. So we carry robotic technology that goes on the ground, flies in the sky, and goes in the water. We have 3 locations in Canada, Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto. So we're spread out across the country. And our unmanned division is really just one of 3. We also have a materials testing division, as well as a geospatial side. And that geospatial side is more on the survey, GPS, total station, laser scanners. But it really helps give us the background knowledge for our customers to help them get that high accuracy data collection that they need. We are Canada's largest DJI Enterprise reseller, so that is something that we are very proud of and we worked very hard for, and it is a key component of our business. And, I always like to go over, the Measur advantage. So how do we differ from other DJI, other drone distributors in Canada and North America? Well, first, we have offices across the country, and in every office, we have electronic technicians in each one, and they're all board level certified electronic technicians. So any of our repairs are done in-house. We have sales staff positioned across the country for fast response times. We have dedicated technical support that we always support every single piece of equipment we sell. And as a company, we do not do services. So we do not go in the field and fly services for our customer. We only sell product, train that customer, and support them for the life cycle of the product. So, since we're talking about Suncor in this presentation, we really want to go over, how do we do an enterprise program set up for a large customer, whether it's energy, forestry, mining, or other industries that come to us and want to set up a drone program. So what do we do? So the first and foremost is we consult them on the equipment procurement. So really we sit down and decide what equipment do they actually need to perform their tasks, faster, more efficiently, and ultimately save them money. The next is we do standardized Transport Canada training. So we make sure that their teams, whether it's all local across the country or international, are all Transport Canada trained or whatever the local regulation is. And then we also standardize the equipment onboarding and actual physical equipment training. So this is essential because you need to standardize your equipment training to make sure that every pilot is collecting data the same way so that when you're doing your data processing, you have that is ubiquitous across everybody. We also offer technical support packages and local repair workflows to make it nice and easy for you. And in the video on the right there, that's actually from Connor there, who's out on a mine site training them on some water sampling that we help set them up with. So when we talk about, how to set up a drone program, we really start at what's a standardized equipment package that your team can run that's going to make it easy, efficient, and fast for you to go collect this data rather than sending multiple crews out to the field. So for Suncor, that package is the DJI M350 RTK, and they pair it with the P1, H20T, and L2. So the biggest advantage to this is every single crew now gets the exact same equipment with the exact same training and the exact same data analytics afterwards for processing. So you have a really unanimous workflow from in the field to in the office. So this obviously minimizes support requests and maximizes productivity in the field. And when you go to a system like the DJI M350, it's a flexible payload option system. So not only do you have integrated DJI payloads, but I also have specialized sensors that we can now integrate with the system that are all compatible, with either the click of a button or even easier sometimes. So I have a wide range, surrounding this drone, but these are just, 10 of, 50, 60, however many integrations there are. And it really comes down to what kind of specialized data are you trying to collect? So for example, we have the Share UAV oblique system on the left side. That's a 5-camera system. So if you're really doing open pit mining and you want to get really good high wall pictures and have 3D reconstruction, that's a really good system for you. And then we also have the Yellow Scan Explorer. So that's a really high accuracy LiDAR system that can fit right under the M350. Near the bottom, we have the Centera 6X multispectral. So if you're trying to do any sort of ecological mapping or reclamation work, we can get all of our RGB bands near infrared as well to get your analysis. We have hyperspectral sensors. We also have methane detectors. The program Falcon is one of many that we carry, but that's used for obviously methane detection a lot in the energy sector. And then we even have water samplers, gas sensors, and then the H20T thermal for inspection as well there. And on the right side, you have some even more specialized sensors from SPH Engineering. So for example, the top one is actually a 500 megahertz GPR unit. The middle one is a 100 megahertz GPR unit, so for lower depth mapping. And then we even have an echo sounder that hangs from the drone itself for sort of tailings pond mapping and mapping the bottom of your water. So the whole key of this is, you can have your standardized drone packages with specialized sensors, but then you also have your specialized robotics for niche applications. So this supplements your standardized kits, brings in this niche technology that your team gets trained on, and allows you to get that data analysis that maybe can't be done with your standardized kit, or maybe it can be done more efficiently. So that includes confined space, large area mapping, bathymetric surveys, heavy lift, Blue UAS, and full autonomy solutions. Now, not to go too deep into these, but just to give everybody, a quick run through, so you have an idea of, what are the kind of technologies that some companies are using on site right now. Well, confined space inspection, if I'm trying to do any sort of GPS denied environment and try to do an inspection of that area, this is the system that I can use so that I can safely go in this area. I don't have to send workers, and more importantly, I don't have to spend money to set up scaffolding and eliminate the disruptive rope access that's required. So for example, the Flybotics ACO, which you see the video there, it has 24 minutes of flight time. You have 10,000 lumens of lighting, so it can light up even pitch black areas, a collision-proof cage, true 4K and infrared, so you get thermal and RGB data, and it has that bi-rotor design for long lifespan for those confined space inspections. If you're a company that, say, has really large areas that you need to map, then we have alternative solutions for that as well. So a dedicated system like the Trinity Pro over something like, your standardized kit it's really purpose-built for large area mapping. So the Trinity Pro has 90 plus minutes of flight time, 17 meter per second wind tolerance, fully vertical takeoff and land, fully Transport Canada approved for over people operations, custom flight planning, custom DEM import for custom terrain follow, and you really have a multitude of payload options. So a lot of these payloads you'll recognize are similar from the Trinity to say it can also be compatible with the DJI and compatible with many other drones we carry. So your payloads are swappable between units depending on the circumstance, but your different platforms are optimized for different scenarios. Next, bathymetric mapping. So you quickly saw on the specialized sensor we had, for example, the tether hanging the echo sounder. Well, if you have a much, much larger area or a large tailing pond that you need mapped and you can't get, a pontoon boat down to the area, or it's too expensive to maneuver that, then we have something like the CHC Nav Apache series boat, which is a fully autonomous bathymetric mapping solution. Comes in 3 models, the 3, 4, and 6. All come standard with single beam echo sounder, but you also have, again, the same thing. You have multi-payload options to add on to that. Included in that is ADCP, as well as multi-beam. So you can either do your river flow mapping or your multi-beam if you want a much more denser point cloud. And you can either integrate, the manufacturer's own, so CHC's own, or a third party, your River Ray and your standard industry formats as well. Next, heavy lift solutions. So sometimes we have payloads that are so specialized, but they are too heavy for common systems that will use our standardized kits. So this is when we're going to bring in a much heavier duty system that's really designed to carry these heavier payloads. One of my favorites is the Ace Core NOAA. It comes in two options, battery or a hybrid gas version. So on the top right, that's the gas hybrid, which kind of looks like it's from a futuristic movie. 20 kilogram weight capacity on the battery version. And if you go the gas hybrid, you have 175 minutes of flight time. So that 20 kilograms of weight capacity, that's going to help you fulfill if you have really, really heavy LiDAR systems, potentially something like our Yellowscan Navigator, which is a bathymetric green laser LiDAR system, or others. And it's all open source proprietary, or non-proprietary. So if you have a custom payload you want to put on there, we can help you with that. Next is Blue UAS. So obviously in the US, there's been a push for, data security concerns and having a solution that, maybe mitigates that data security for government applications. In Canada, this is not too prevalent as of yet, but we do have solutions if you are a large international or multi-country organization that has to mandate these and have standardized, NDA compliant Blue UAS certified drones. So that's something like the Inspire Flight IF800. It's kind of the workhorse of the Blue UAS list. 54-minute flight time, 6.6 pounds. And again, the payload capacity on the bottom, you can see all the different payloads. Very similar to what you've seen on other drones. So they're all swappable. They just use different ports and different mounting mechanisms. And we can help you work on mounting, again, whatever system you want underneath. Next, we have autonomy. So as was mentioned by Tedman, as Transport Canada evolves the regulations to allow for BVLOS, low risk BVLOS, and all these other operations, at this current point in time, ground-based autonomous inspections are going on and are happening right now. So we use the Torub, and it's an autonomous inspection robot with a arm that can fully extend, 4K camera, thermal. It has a LiDAR sensor on it, so it maps your surroundings as well as for avoidance and direction, a multi-gas sensor, 360 camera, long endurance, but really the biggest advantage is it's fully ATEX certified. So what happens is if it's ATEX level 1 certified, so I can actually run this in environments that are at risk of explosion in the air. And so it also has an ATEX certified docking system. So I can actually dock this in my level 1 zone environment, and it can fully run my inspections autonomously. I don't have to send any individuals and have any risk of human life in that area. It then has a fully flexible API. So whatever system you're using in terms of data analytics, if you're a large energy organization, we can help integrate into that as well. Lastly, once Transport Canada regulations enable drone flights on a wider scale, can we do this right now? Yes, with SFOCs and proper compliance, but it will be more widespread as the year goes on and next year. And this is the DJI dock. So this is DJI's first drone in a box solution. It's by far the most accessible drone in a box solution available on the market. And really what it does is allow you to scale your operations efficiently without humans in the field and just have operation from, a central command center. Fully automatic deployment, advanced flight routes, fully weather resistant. So even in, Canada's difficult weather with snow, rain, cold weather, then obviously this can still be deployed. And that's everything from Measur's end. Just a quick brief overview. If you guys have any other questions on our side, on the equipment side, definitely please let us know, and we'd be happy to help. And I'm going to let Connor hop back on the stage and field any questions that were sent in the chat there.
All right, thank you, Lucas. Yeah, so we'll take a few questions now. I'd like to ask the rest of the presenters to come up, and I'll try and field as many questions as possible to the right person. If any of you want to step in, just let me know and we can definitely answer some. So we'll go from the top here. So there's just a question on, I believe this is for Tedman. Do you cover the cost of employees to take the advanced drone pilot course / certification? So if you could give some background on that.
Yes, thank you, Connor. So we provide all the training for our Suncor employees. So once a Suncor employee has identified, or a business unit has identified a need, to use a drone, then we onboard them into our ground school. We offer ground school 4 times a year, so once a quarter, and we target about 18 to 20 Suncor employees at a time to get them fully certified. So it's a full week hands-on, and then after they have their advanced license, it's when we work with Measur to get them trained on the actual system themselves.
Perfect. Then we have another one, Tedman, I believe that's for you as well. Just on another helicopter company, just looking for some information on that. I believe you said you're going to send it to him. So
yeah, you betcha. I will. I have your email. I will reach out and get you in contact with our helicopter division, my coworkers in the aviation department.
Perfect. Then there was another one too for yourself, Tedman. Does Suncor's RPAS management system track non-internal or Suncor vendor RPAS platforms that may be flying in the airspace?
So no, currently not. Until there is a whole system from Transport Canada that everyone has access to. We only are tracking Suncor vendors. If somebody is a non-approved vendor, unfortunately, there is no way for us to get that information at the moment.
Perfect. Okay, and then this one I believe is for Lucas. Has there been any testing on the Yellowscan Navigator done in murkier Alberta lakes with high turbidity?
So the long answer is not yet. The short answer is, how do you determine that? Well, obviously it's hard. The Yellowscan Navigator, they spec it to 2 seki, however you wanna define that. And basically what that is, it's basically a 30 centimeter black and white disc. And however far you can stay under the water, it's 2 of that. So if 1 seki is, I get 2.2 meter depth, then we'll get about 4.4 meter penetration. So really, it's really hard to say until we actually do an on-site test at your area.
Thank you, Lucas. This question should be for Tedman. Is the Suncor program completely in-house, or do you use third-party vendors for work needed?
So actually, before the 2023, we were completely vendor-based. And then starting in 2022 and into 2023, we have developed an internal pilot program. So we have currently 10 business units. We have 25 Suncor employees who are trained and are flying drones at this time. We will never fully be internal. I think we will always have that opportunity for external vendors. Our folks are not, we're using the drones to complement their work. We're not making them full-time drone pilots. So a lot of the flights that we see at site are fairly low risk, simple, and repeatable. If we ever encounter something that we deem higher risk or that is sort of outside the box, I would specifically say in like the inspection space. If it's it's a vessel or an internal inspection that the folks have never flown in, or it's more confined, like quite small space or some tight corners, we definitely would rely on our vendors then. And as well as we're mapping our mines constantly. We have approximately at least, I would say, 9 flights a day over our different mining sites, just so they can map the changes in the mine surface, and just to have a dedicated Suncor person to do that, process the data. It is all it's much more cost effective to have a vendor do that.
Thank you, Tedman. This next question will be for Derek. So Derek, you want to hop in there? You can get over there.
Yeah.
So Derek, for flight insight, can you integrate dynamic layers such as constantly changing wildfire maps?
That's actually a really good question. And one that I'd like Jesse. So Jesse's our Director of Information Systems. He's built the architecture, and I hate to pass this one off, but I'm going to. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the answer to that question is likely yes. Our goal this year is to have we're trying to integrate BC and Alberta fire data into our mapping system. And Flight Insight's stated goal with our system is to try and integrate as much data as possible so that the entire system is giving everybody the clues and the information they need to try to make sure that the flight is occurring safely. So yeah, the goal will be to have the flight check against different airspace requirements, not just the client requirements like it has now or airspace requirements like it has now, but even things like fires and other criteria as we come up with them, all be kind of merged into a central mapping system and flight checker that will go in and verify that the flight is not interacting with any of that airspace.
Thank you, Jesse. The next one is for Lucas. Does Measur provide advanced RPAS operation training plus certification with TC?
Yes, we absolutely do. So we work with a number of organizations across the country, and then we kind of amalgamate it all together depending on where you are and what you need to make sure it's right for you and your team, whether that's online, in person, flight reviews, everything. So be happy to help you on that and, guide you the right way.
Thank you, Lucas. And then there's just a final question. Will this presentation be available to download? As mentioned, yes, 100%. We will send a link to everybody that attended and everybody that signed up. So that will be showing up in your email sometime today as soon as Lucas downloads everything and gets everything primed and ready to go. So you guys will be seeing one shortly here. So I think that's everything. Oh, a couple more. Sorry. This one is for Lucas. Do you currently have any solutions for stringing operations for electric utilities?
Not directly, but I'd be happy to. I know some solutions that I'll guide you to that will probably make the most sense for you. So I'll reach out after the presentation with what I think is the best bet for you, and I'll just send that your way.
Perfect. And then one final question here, and then we'll sign off. Does Flight Insight ingest NOTAMs? If not, where does the 5.1 info come from?
So we work with a couple different data providers for our airspace data, and so I'm not quite sure the 5.1. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm confident what you're referencing there, but we don't directly ingest the NOTAM data. Oh yes, by fire. Yeah, so we've looked into that. We are, like I said, we're working on the solution for this upcoming summer season here, and both Alberta and BC do release data in shape files for fire info, and it's not just always the newest or current fire or what the NOTAM shows. Because the NOTAMs aren't actually as common, or I should say, they don't have put a NOTAM for every fire that's listed out there, and so just the ones that I believe that are actually being fought. So we're actually looking to integrate the government data from BC and Alberta for now, anyway, to start with, so that we can get those shape files and draw them on our mapping system.
Perfect. Thank you, Jesse. So yeah, if there's no more questions, I'd just like to say thank you from all of us. Really appreciate everyone who attended. So yeah, as mentioned, you will be getting a copy of this after. And yeah, thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.